This video is sponsored by Squarespace.
Do you like it, Tally?
I mean, I'm just not sure I understand it. I've never been able to get my head around this modern art.
Well, what does it say to you?
I don't know, like... ball? Like ball with cracks in it. Cracked ball. Cracking fireball with fire cracks. Fire and its cracks and the balls. I don't know, you're the expert.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I get to. Okay, look, I know it's not the most exciting login screen in WoW history.
Or dynamic.
Or sensical, but I don't want to judge until we get the music. You know, the music is going to really make this pop. Oh, what's that?
It's an alert from Wowhead. Apparently, they've data mined the login music to go with this screen. Do you want to hear it?
Oh yeah, now you're talking.
Does this gallery have a cafe?
Does it have a bar?
Knowledge is power.
Hello Internet, Taliesin here. Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Reset, Taliesin and Evitel's wondrous wisdom show. In a week where there is a lot of exciting War Within news to talk about. New, genuinely meaningful impacts to the game. Some which are brilliant, some which are not so brilliant, but there is no bigger story than the new updates to Mythic Plus. Blizzard have turned the entire concept of affixes upside down and inside out to such a degree that I'm not even slightly exaggerating when I say that high-level players are getting what they've been asking for years. Basically, no affixes. Affixes are only for scrubs now. Scrub fixes. And you better believe we will be getting into all of that. But first, let's have a roundup of the week's most interesting War Within news.
Welcome to Evi's Beta Rundown. I know Tally didn't call it that, but that's what it's called. Make sure you remember to call it Evi's Beta Rundown when you write about it on the internet. You can mention the catchphrase if you like. Let's run down. You don't have to, but you can. Big changes for crafting orders this week because they can now be fulfilled for NPCs. No more crafting order droughts and slow profession progression, as all crafters will now have personal orders sent directly their way by world NPCs. Orders look like they will appear on a bi-weekly cycle, much like world quests, and will allow players to earn those knowledge points without the need for people. If you miss any orders in a given week, you'll be able to catch up in the next, and the best part, not only do NPCs tip properly, which can't be said for some players, but they'll also offer special bonus awards periodically. I know this is basically crafting order world quests repackaged into the crafting order UI, but it's great news for anyone who has struggled with a lack of orders coming their way. And it also feels like part of a wider shift towards individual player agency and, dare I say it, quality of life improvements. And of course, no other players required. It's all solo, baby. UI news. The overall UI system has seen a number of shiny new updates in the War Within beta. Firstly, there's the addition of search boxes, which is a feature so basic and run-of-the-mill and essential that if you're not a search box person, you would have assumed they were already there. But if you are a search box person, this update will have come as a massive relief. Finally, you will be able to search your spellbook by spell name or description, which is a huge boon for everyone because they've made the actual spellbook absolutely massive. But that's not all. Your quest log is now searchable too. You can search your log by quest name or description, so now you really have no excuse for not doing Siege on Dragonbane Keep, but I'm still not going to do it. And now that your warband is assembled, you'll be able to search that list too, filtering by name, class, but also their current location, and even by profession. Finally, we see the new map icons at work, thank God, which separate out campaign and important quests, along with legendary and meta ones, though giving those all zingy colors and borders makes the classic local quest exclamation mark look a little unloved. Though guaranteed the in progress icon is going to strike fear into the heart of anyone who's ever been left on red. Yeah, still feels bad. If all this sounds a bit overwhelming, the new map legend has you covered, and if that's not enough, It's filterable. Sick of seeing sky riding races? Not interested in local stories or trivial quests? Aww. And with warbands counting towards progress across your account, unticking warband completed quests means you won't get situations like the sad cow lady hanging around Veldraken every single day trying to give you the Bane quest that you did on your main. Go home, Mela. Your people need you, Mela. I am not doing the Bane quest again, Mela.
Okay, let's address the big, pulsating, magic magma-veined ball in the room. The new War Within login screen is here. It's one of those big moments in any beta cycle for me, the reveal of the image I will see before anything else when I load up the game every day, or multiple times a day. I'm not one to play favourites, but watching Sindragosa touch down surprisingly gracefully on screen with Icecrown Citadel looming hazily in the background, little snowflakes tinkling across the landscape before the music goes absolutely heroic bananas, or Deathwing looming over the ruins of Stormwind to the tune of the Shattering, some of the absolute best music ever written in WoW, condensed into 12 orgasmic minutes. The Dark Portal, icons, each and every one of them, and it was with the same absolute joy and fervour that the community welcomed this latest addition to the login screen canon with the praise and reverence we all agree it deserves, and by that I mean it was a shit show, obviously. What the fuck is this? What even is that? Looks ass. This fish ugly as hell, I'm not gonna lie. I've never been so underwhelmed in my life. I want to cry. My eyeballs right out of my skull. That login screen is crap. And yeah, it's only beta, but this is no placeholder, is it? This is an animated, fully functioning thing. Not a gate into adventure like login screens always have been before, or I don't know, maybe it is? To be honest, I don't know what it is. What is it? I don't know, but I have a few theories on what could be going on here. First of all, it's impossible to look at this without seeing the War Within logo itself, isn't it? And therefore, both of the other logos from the World Souls saga too. So maybe it's going to carry on through all 3 expansions and change accordingly, which actually would mean that if you didn't like this one, then tough shit, because it's going to be the same for the next 3 expansions, just in various different shades. Would that be boring? Yes. Is this just by itself boring? Yes. Now, what I think is most likely is that the screen will change patch by patch, or even more often than that. Imagine this big veiny ball erupting and turning into the world soul itself, into the beautiful Azerite sun-like image we had of it in the recent trailer. What if we get to see the void encroaching with its spooky smoke tendrils like we did in that trailer? What if Xal'atath is gonna ride it like a mechanical bull and put her big beautiful spooky hand around it like she does in that promo image? But still, even with all that, there's something undynamic about this whole thing, isn't there? And it pains me, it does, to say it, but I am pretty sympathetic to the disappointment, honestly.
Now, I know I've been going on about UI for ages, but I can't not mention the massively overhauled Transmog UI, which is going to make life much easier for Transmog farmers and basic bitches alike, letting you browse items and sets for every class from any character, and which is essential now that any class can learn any kind of Transmog piece in the War Within. We've also gotten to see new world maps for Khaz Algar, and it's definitely a map. Individual areas are looking pretty cool, with the City of Threads looking very purple and Suramari, which is promising, but I can't help but feel like the wider Khaz Algar map is just a bit claustrophobic. And I know it's hard to convey depth and verticality on a mostly 2D map, but when all 3 underground zones are condensed into what looks like a giant uniform pothole on the M4, instead of a dynamic, multi-leveled fun tunnel heading towards the core of Azeroth, then I can't help but feel a bit anxious about how this whole underground vibe is going to play out. Maybe I'm just nitpicking, but that's just what I do. I'll be back with more news in just a sec after this message from me. Dearest friends, it has come to my attention that a certain purple lady has captured the hearts and souls of many of you. My condolences to you, but also, heck yeah, I am so excited for everything coming this year. And thank you to Squarespace for being here for us and for sponsoring today's video, especially during this difficult time, because it is difficult. to focus on anything but knifey-wifey, but you know what I'm saying. I have found one source of respite, and that is in the endless scrollathon that is Instagram. And thankfully, Squarespace is the ultimate enabler of my Insta habit, thanks to loads of tools and integrations throughout the platform. First and foremost is, of course, your social link bar. I lived in a time back when icons had to be uploaded and linked out individually. I'm old, I know. But now you can just go in, edit your social links, or even delete if you want, and Squarespace will add it to your bar instantly. And of course, there's the handy editor, which lets you have your very own Instagram integration integrated right in there. It's as draggy and droppy and resizey as ever, and when the grid is looking a little, well, purple, you can always change up the design, which should make it... Oh, that's still... Yeah, there's no escaping her, is there? Okay, listen, maybe Instagram isn't the best place for me to be right now. Let's look at what else Squarespace can cook up for us. Let's see. Amazon, Flickr... No. Hey, what's Zola? An integrated wedding registry?
What are you doing, Evie?
Nothing. You've seen all the cool things you can build right into your Squarespace site. Why don't you build one for yourself? You can do that while I take care of some important business. You just head to squarespace.com/Taliesin Evitel, where you can score 10% off your first purchase of a Squarespace website or domain, or just use code Taliesin Evitel instead. That's squarespace.com/Taliesin Evitel. And a big W for welcome back to our Chinese contingent, as NetEase have announced that retail WoW services in China will resume on August 1st, and that they'll be joining the rest of the world for the global launch of The War Within on August 26th, a deadline that many were not expecting to be met. Chinese servers have been offline since January 2023, but NetEase are offering loads of incentives to bring players back, including a sped-up Wrath Classic experience, free game time, mounts, pets, loads of tendies, and even a dedicated Chinese server trading post NPC to handle the upcoming masses of transactions. Back in April, when it was announced that services would be resuming in China, over 2 million players signed up for pre-registration in only 2 days. That's 1 million per day. But it's safe to say that new and returning subs will be in the multi-millions. Estimates from Warcraft logs suggest that Chinese players made up 60% of the classic player base before servers went down. Retail Tendi traders and classic Chads are getting their gifts, but what about the Chinese hardcore crew? As it turns out, NetEase have announced the first official bounty for winning the War Within race to World First, offering 1 million yuan, that's about $137,578, or 12 billion Australian dollars, to any Chinese group that wins the title. Now, it must be a Chinese group to win the prize, and if it isn't claimed in this race, the prize money will roll over into the next race with a little extra added on top. Can we expect any region transfers from the usual Mythic hotshot teams? Probably not, to be honest, but it's a nice incentive to get the Chinese groups back on board. All this is governed by NetEase, and not just Blizzard, of course, but it'll be interesting to see if Blizz ever follows suit and sponsor official prizes in a similar way. Other stuff to mention. I guess this is like the beta rundown. Shaman changes are coming next week. I'll believe it when I see it. PvP gear is changing, and that you'll no longer need sparks to craft it, but reagents that can be bought with Honor or Conquest, and with Honor now being tradable across your warband. And Blizz have announced that they plan to have a presence, at this year's Gamescom. Will it be BlizzCon worthy? Probably not, but expect to see the hype train in full choo-choo mode in Cologne. I know we'll be there to help see it off.
If you want to know more about any of the stories that we cover today, then check out the description below, where we will link a bunch of Wowhead articles for you to peruse at your leisure. But finally today, Mythic Plus. After a round of changes a couple of weeks ago, which was such a disaster that they only stayed up for testing for a tiny bit, it's fair to say there have been mumblings of discontent among devotees of, in Ian Hazakostas' opinion, the single best addition to the game that he has overseen in his time at Blizzard. A ridiculous statement, obviously, when beautiful bouncy roly-poly hippo boy Maurice was added on Ian's watch, but okay. The devs were going back to the drawing board, and it's fair to say that hopes weren't especially high in the community that they'd come back with anything worth getting excited about. But it turns out that was a little bit pessimistic. Because what we have here in this week's changes is nothing less than a clean slate when it comes to this game mode, finally throwing out 8-year-old fixes and refreshing the entire philosophy behind Mythic Dungeons. So, in the bin with Sanguine, Boasting, Bursting and Raging, the new Mythic Plus looks like this. At Keystone level +2, players will have to deal with one of Xal'atath's bargain affixes, a kiss curse mechanic that will rotate weekly. We don't know how many of these there will be overall, hopefully a few because they do represent the main variety in keys now, but there are 2 available to test on the PTR right now. Ascendant, which sees Xal'atath drop balls on the enemies you're fighting to give them a haste and movement speed buff. But players can get there first, and if they are successful in taking Xal'atath's balls, then they can get the haste and movement buff instead. Likewise, Frenzied sees non-boss enemies becoming frenzied at 20% health, increasing their haste by 40%, but their damage taken by 20%. People aren't going to call this Frenzied, they're going to call it Execute. And that's the kind of thing that we're looking at with these Xal'atath affixes. Obviously reminiscent of seasonal affixes, but on a rotation and with those much requested beneficial effects to players too. So far, so frankly, very good. At +4, Tyrannical or Fortified get thrown into the mix depending on the week as usual. At +7, you get a new standard affix, Challenger's Peril, which increases your time penalty for dying from 5 to 15 seconds, designed to encourage precise play. At +10, currently the level that I always think you win Mythic Plus in the most basic sense, because that's the level that rewards the portals, then both Tyrannical and Fortified will be active, standardizing the experience at that level. So to be clear, every +10 you play in War Within will have Tyrannical, it will have Fortified, it will have 15-second punishments for dying, and it will have one Xal'atath affix, that being the only thing that rotates from week to week. And then at +12, we lose the Xal'atath affix completely, and it's replaced with Xal'atath's Guile, a flat 20% increase to health and damage of dungeon enemies. So from +12 upwards, there is no variation in the extra challenges you will have to deal with week to week. It's Fortified and Tyrannical. It's the 15-second dying penalty. It's the 20% enemy health and damage buff. So there is, in theory, no push week. No ignore this shit week. And also no reason to ever break the meta dungeon group lineup, whatever that happens to be. But that is purely for high-level key pushing. If you are doing every key at +12 or more, you have over 3k rating. But the majority of players who do lower keys more regularly should also notice a more standardized, streamlined experience. What do you think of that? The weeks of testing in the build-up to the new expansion will obviously uncover all the inevitable gripes and niggles in this new system, and in fact that is already happening. Initial testing on these affixes has revealed that Ascendant, the new Xal'atath's ball affix, isn't quite what people imagined when they read the description. That suggested that balls would fall and need to be collected by players, but in fact, every minute, Xali summons 4 waves of 5 orbs, which then all begin a cast. Every cast that is allowed to go through then buffs enemies' speed and haste by 20% each, and the only way to stop that is to interrupt, purge, crowd control, or displace them. Every cast successfully stopped in this way will award the players 1 stack of Cosmic Ascension, which grants 1% haste and movement speed for 20 seconds. If Mythic Plus is your thing, then obviously this is quite a lot like Razageth's Sparks, and players were quick to point out that it perhaps didn't meet Blizzard's own criteria for these affixes, one of which was to reduce health bar bloat on screen, because yeah, this really sucks. Get fished if you don't have an AoE stun CC knockback. This just looks fishing obnoxious. Absolute shame, incompetence, and disconnect with reality. Out of touch Blizzard devs keep disappointing more and more. I'm done. This is the straw. I'm over it. I have more fun games to play, which, yeah, the details of Xal'atath affixes will need looking at, but the shape and overall philosophy of this new Mythic Plus is the more important aspect, and generally the reaction to that so far has been overwhelmingly positive. And it's not often we get to say that, except in War Within, actually, where it's been happening quite a lot, to be fair. My own initial reactions are, yeah, like, I agree with everyone else. Getting rid of old affixes is awesome. I am excited about the Xal'atath rotation. Hopefully there's an affix one week where you just have to, like, take her out on a date or something, because I would own that affix. Everyone would want me in their group for that one, because I would destroy that affix, seriously. And I think the standardization as key difficulty increases is great, because it's what high-level players have been saying they need, and I guess they should probably know. I do have a niggling little doubt that the less variety week to week, which this new system does have, will make Mythic Plus seasons feel done and over with and a bit stale, just that little bit sooner than they do now. But you could argue that's a good thing, because you've done that by cutting out dead weeks with shitty affixes and artificially extending people's playtime in the season. So overall, like most people, I am incredibly optimistic about this, not least because, just like in Dragonflight, there really does seem to be a real willingness from the devs to listen and act on player requests and feedback, even when that means fundamentally changing a gameplay philosophy. Yeah, that's right, fam. There is a fleet of Hopium blimps in the air right now, which is perfectly safe, obviously. There's never been a Hopium blimp disaster that I can think of, or at least that I can remember. Genuinely feels pretty good to be playing WoW right now. I'm not used to everyone being so happy about stuff. Kind of makes me uncomfortable. Someone show me something to bring me back down to earth. Yeah. That'll do it. Thank you for joining us today. If you liked this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real-life money to make all of our work happen. And guys, thank you, because without you, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evitel. As always, there is an ad and sponsor-free version of this video on there for you to watch, which might even have gone up a little bit early, who knows. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. Remember, my name is Tettles. No, my name is Taliesin. From me and Evitel, until next time, cheerio.